Good morning. Welcome to the Texas Whole Child Initiative hosted by Texas ASCD. Thank you for taking time from your always busy schedule to attend this webinar. As you can see on the webcam, there are two webinar facilitators today. I'm Glenda Heil.
And I'm Ganera Burgess, and we're so excited that you're here with us today. You will hear from Glenda and I during the webinar, and we're actually board members of the Texas ASCD. Not only are we passionate about students and our learning process, we are greatly passionate about the whole child education, because that is what it can mean to our children and to Texas and also to our country.
You're right. You can't tell by looking at us, I'm sure. Between the two of us, Ganera and I have 75 years of experience in education.
We won't ask them whether we look okay.
We won't ask how old we look, but we have a lot of years. We've worked as teachers who taught students ranging from 3-year-olds through the doctoral level in college, and we both worked as middle school principals and in key positions in central office administration in our districts. Our goal in this 30-minute session is to provide a general awareness and basic understanding concerning the whole child approach to learning. If you've not already done so, we encourage you to become familiar with the Texas Whole Child Guide. It will provide background information, important references, and a more comprehensive understanding of the whole initiative. The guide is available to download at our Texas ASCD website, which will be displayed on some of the slides. If you have questions during the webinar, we will address as many as possible at the end of the webinar as time permits. We have a lot of information to share with you today. So,
as professional educators, we know that a child's progress should be measured on more than academics and state testing results. As you well know, if we continue to solely concentrate on academics and state testing, we fail to educate the whole child. A whole education is what you and I want for our children and our grandchildren. In addition to the important academics in the core areas, all children deserve to learn the critical lifelong skills required to thrive in school and in our 21st century workplace. As substantiated by research, students must be able to apply the following skills: the critical thinking, the scientific method, you might say, the critical thinking, evaluating huge amounts of information because of the internet and everything that we have today, creative thinking, using that imagination, thinking out of the box, intuitiveness, solving complex problems, and communicating well. The Texas curriculum standards, however, do not provide enough time for students to master these vital skills which are critical for the education of the whole child. In order to address the growing concerns of Texas ASCD regarding the necessity for the education of the whole child, we have joined hands with the International ASCD to strengthen and support advocacy of policy and practice in the best interest of every child. We based our Texas initiative on the International ASCD Whole Child Initiative and several of their national publications.
Using these publications as a baseline, Texas ASCD developed the Texas Whole Child Guide. It is a brief 20-page document that goes much more in-depth than time permits today. The guide was developed to support schools and communities in understanding the initiative and in taking action for their students. The guide contains Texas data which support the need for whole child education in Texas. As stated earlier, the guide is available for download from our website that you see on your screen. Supporting a whole child education is one action. But educators must advocate for what we believe, and we're not very good about that sometimes. What we've done to advocate a balanced approach to teaching and learning is to follow up in 3 ways. Our organization first sent a copy of the Whole Child Guide with a letter from our executive director, Dr. Yolanda Ray, and mailed it to every legislator very early this year. Next, Texas ASCD developed a 3-point legislative agenda and delivered it to every Texas legislator during February. The agenda is built around a more balanced approach to teaching and learning in support of whole child education. Then the Texas ASCD Board of Directors, including Ganera and myself, followed up by completing our first advocacy day, during which we personally visited key and local legislators at the Capitol. We expressed our support of the 3 points in the Texas ASCD legislative agenda, including whole child education. Now we're going to get into a little bit more about whole child education, and Ganera will share some compelling data with you about our children in our state of Texas.
Well, Glenda, in the state of Texas, we have approximately 5.2 million public school students. A large number are affected dramatically by poverty and homelessness. Research data collected by the 2010 State Report Card on Child Homelessness from the National Center on Family Homelessness reflected that 49% of Texas children, all ages, live in poverty. Yet, 59.1% of Texas public school children are economically disadvantaged. I know that we realize as close to 60% of our children attending our public schools in a supposedly prosperous state are academically disadvantaged. Of the 50 states, Texas ranks 12th from the bottom. That means 38th among the 50 states in meeting the needs of the homeless. Yes, the data are very sobering indeed when we realize how poverty affects the teaching and the learning of the students of whom are attending in our public schools.
Keeping Ganera's data in mind, as well as the additional educational data from TEA that's in the Whole Child Guide, here's our question we have to ask ourselves. Can we continue to say that emphasis only on the core academic subjects is all that our students require to be successful? Of course not. You know better, I know better, we all know better. To address both core academics and the real-life needs of our children, the Texas Whole Child Initiative is built upon 5 tenets developed by ASCD. Backed by national research, the initiative stipulates that to be successful in school and in life, every child must be healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged, not just challenged. We all know students are challenged by STAR and by the text. Our definition is a much broader definition of achievement and accountability than the one currently in use. Should you want more background about the ASCD efforts, that information is also provided in the Texas Whole Child Guide. Before we further discuss the 5 whole child tenets, we're providing a mental and visual framework to which you can link them. I want you to think back to that Psychology 101 course where you learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Remember those basic needs close to the bottom of the hierarchy? Well, the importance of the hierarchy in relation to the whole child tenets is this. Children cannot achieve their greatest potential until their basic needs are met, their basic needs. Just as a child's basic needs must be addressed in sequential order, so is the order of the whole child tenets essential. Our children must first be healthy and feel they are safe. Then, as they're engaged in our classrooms, They must also be and feel supported and challenged. There's no doubt they're being challenged academically. As you think about the 5 tenets we just explained, it will help you to know that no cute acronym exists for the 5 tenets. Each person must advocate for whole child education using the same order of the tenets and their framework to ensure each child in every school, in each community, can benefit from our advocacy. Speaking of basic needs, let's think for a moment and try to imagine what students are really thinking and feeling when they come to school those first days. Do you think they're thinking about academics or what you want them to learn? No, they're probably thinking more about their basic needs. They may really be thinking questions like this. Will I have a friend in class this year? Will I make some new friends? Will my teachers like me? Oh, this is the harder grade level. Will I be able to do the work in this harder grade or this higher grade level? Will I be picked on or bullied by other kids this year or ripped off? I was last year, and my friend was. Will someone understand my situation at home? Will anyone even care that Dad lost his job and some days we don't have enough to eat, let alone buy school supplies? Does that sound true to you? Our students' most fundamental level of health, safety, and belonging are monopolizing their minds every day, all year. Do we really address those needs of the whole child? The 5 whole child tenets will address those fundamental needs and much more. Let's talk about the tenets. Each of the 5 tenets, healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged, is comprised of 10 minimum indicators. We know you can't see those very well here, but they're in your whole child guide. The indicators are used to track successful implementation of the tenet, as well as providing guidance and monitoring a school community's progress in meeting and then sustaining each tenet. We will definitely not have time today to discuss all 10 indicators for each of the 5 tenets, so we've chosen to highlight a few of them for each of the tenets. However, it's important that you take the time to read all the indicators for each tenet so you have a better idea of what each tenet is really all about. Ganera is going to begin.
As we start at the bottom of the triangle, working with tenet 1, that's on page 13 if you have your guide, you notice that each student enters school healthy and learns about and practices a healthy lifestyle. Yes, it will take a community effort and collaboration to provide early intervention so that our students actually walk in the door healthy and they remain healthy. Let's look at indicator 3. In order to support and reinforce the health and well-being of each child, the teaching of physical education in our schools must be reflected in the school schedule, curriculum, and instruction. We must focus upon developing lifetime fitness while expanding the knowledge of each student. Through quality physical activities, we have observed and research indicates that the attitudes, the behaviors, and the skill levels are positively impacted. It is not simply schedule or curriculum or instruction. Notice it listed all 3. There was no or. It does not exist among the 10 indicators listed for each tenet. It is the total 10 indicators. The indicators are not like a smorgasbord buffet in which you take whatever you happen to want at the time. You must meet all the indicators, not just 1, not just 2, or number 3. The smorgasbord approach has been in progress for absolutely many years, and we have called it educating the whole child. But after we get through and through awareness, we'll realize, but is it really? Number 7 does not apply only to children. Notice that the health and the well-being activities must be ongoing, which require quality professional development. In addition, just as core academics require quality curriculum and assessment, hey, so does health and physical fitness. Our very media continually highlight the lack of concern for health in our country while emphasizing the obesity and poor health challenges that affect our country's children and adults. And last, as an example, would be indicator 9. And 9 will demand critical and creative, see, that's using that imagination out of the box, creative thinking skills to provide access for students and staff. Notice, we're included on that, to services for physical health, mental health, and dental services. Definitely, this will require collaboration, coordination, and integration of resources within our communities. Glenda, will you share Tenet 2 and a few key indicators?
We sure will. Let's look at Tenet 2 on page 14 of your Whole Child Guide if you have it. Each student learns in an environment that is physically and emotionally safe for students and adults. If you think about it, Ganera, it really makes sense that for students to learn at high levels, they must first feel safe. Due to the recent tragedy in Connecticut, we have refocused on students being physically safe in our schools. However, research says that for students to learn at high levels, our school climate must be one in which students feel safe, both physically and emotionally. We continually work in our schools to ensure that our students are physically safe. However, think about a student or students you may know who have been bullied or even being bullied now at your school. When they passed the Texas Bullying Prevention Act that was implemented last year, it required districts to have a local bullying policy in place. We hope this law will decrease bullying dramatically. However, if you look at the national and state media, many students continue to be bullied outside school due to that very social media that they use very easily but very hurtfully on a regular basis. Bullying and harassment are taking and have taken a huge toll on our children. Students who are fearful, bullied, or distracted by fights or other disruptive behavior are unlikely to do well academically.
That's so true.
They are not going to do well in a climate that is not self-centered either. Let's take a moment and ask yourself, are we doing all we can to ensure that our students are emotionally and physically safe and that they're in a student-centered climate? I think we need to ask ourselves that a lot. Let's look at indicator number 7. I'm going to let you read this because it's pretty complex, so take a second to read this on your own. We want you to ask yourself, do our schools teach, model, and provide opportunities to practice these social emotional skills, including this list of life skills and ethical decision making? This is a pretty big one, but a very important one for our children. Do we only partially address this indicator in our schools by teaching and maybe modeling? But do we really provide time for students to practice these life skills? This may be another example of the smorgasbord approach that Ganera talked about and the lack of time in our curriculum. Ganera, we're ready to move to the third tenet.
Tenet 3. You will notice that this one is, each student is actively engaged in learning and is connected to the school and broader community. Well, what does it mean to be engaged in learning. Active learning requires active teaching. What does it mean to be connected to school and community? Indicator number 6 tells us how. We acknowledge that we live in an increasingly global society. Our students compete for jobs and educational access across the world. It is more critical than ever that our curriculum and instruction promote relevance to the real world of the 21st century, which includes cultural understanding and traditions. Through quality engagement in the classroom, our students apply the learned content through the integration of those critical skills previously addressed. And indicator number 2, this indicator will also require collaboration and coordination between school and community. Yes, it takes a village to raise a child. The goal is that every school will provide opportunities for all students to actively learn in a real-world environment. Note that the community activities listed are connected with the word AND, and. What better way to develop American citizenship skills than by connecting them directly to our community? If you will, please, make a note to yourself of the missing aspects that you identified through just this mere introduction to the minimum indicators of Tenet 3 regarding engagement. Take a moment and think of an action you can make and note it while you're at your computer. Glenda, you think you're about ready?
I think we're ready for Tenet 4.
Oh, okay.
Each student has access to personalized learning and is supported by qualified, caring adults. We know that students who are healthy and safe feel more supported. It makes common sense. Supportive relationships that are positive and respectful among students and adults reinforce academic achievement as well as social and civic development. We know that students must feel supported by caring, qualified adults to learn at high levels. Students require both attributes in an effective teacher: qualified, which the state law has taken care of, and caring. Students also need additional access to other adult role models, to advisors and mentors and counselors, as well as their teachers. We could say that support is not measured by state test scores, but test scores certainly reflect the lack of support our students receive or possibly don't receive.
Now, that's so true, Glenda.
It's a lot to think about. Let's look at indicator 5. Our school staff understands and makes curricular, instructional, and school improvement decisions based on child and adolescent development and student performance indicators. Notice it does not say only on student performance indicators. What we're really talking about here, Ganera, is using core academic performance tests on past state tests and our local curriculum-based assessments. But again, notice decisions are not based solely on core academic performance in this indicator. We must also consider our children's development. Research supports the following statement: when children believe adults care about them, care who they are, and care about what they know and can do, then a higher percentage of students respond to what those adults value. And we know this to be true, and we know that we want our students to value the things that we're teaching them in school.
Because we've all observed it.
Yes, we have. Take just a moment and think about one way in which you can possibly be more supportive of students, either in your school and in your district, before we go on to the last of the 5 tenets. Yanira, number 5.
Well, everyone, this to me and to so many, this is the lighthouse tenet. And I'm going to read it because it has to be divided because it's in some large chunks. Each student is challenged academically and prepared for success in college or further study, and for employment and participation in a global environment. It is crucial that our children are challenged and prepared for college or employment in our global environment. What does it mean, though, to be challenged academically other than on the state test? Remember, those critical life skills that we mentioned earlier are necessary for success in school and in life. The inclusion of those skills must become part of everyday teaching, and everyday application of those skills must become part of the well-balanced curriculum for the children.
And I think that's where we get into trouble. We teach skills, but sometimes we really don't give them opportunities to apply those skills.
That's right. We don't, how would you say, we don't go back and let them try another way. I think you're exactly right, Glenn. Let's discuss an indicator under this tenets number 7. As you read this indicator, please know that the indicator does not mention the 4 core areas of instruction. That's got an exclamation point to it. Exclamation. We must educate the whole child, which includes extracurricular, co-curricular, and community-based programs. Once again, education is not just core academics. Me, as a past high school teacher and administrator, I witnessed each year an impressive number of our students receiving full paid or partial college scholarships based upon their skills and performances in sports, choir, art, multimedia, debate, band, agriculture, theater, hold on everybody, cheerleading, athletic trainer, etc. Every child has so many gifts, and we must find a way to touch all of those through educating the whole child. Indicator number 8, this indicator actually reinforces tenet 3's engage. This indicator reinforces tenet 3's indicator number 6, because again it emphasizes the necessity for real-world global relevance and the importance of understanding of cultures and languages. Now let's pause a minute. We want you to take this time maybe to stop and reflect a little bit. Look carefully at each tenet and the 10 indicators if you have your guide with you, and plea with you to listen with your heart as to what is truly best for all children.
Well, we've gone through a lot of information.
Amen.
And so what we're going to do is to do what good teachers do, and that's to summarize for you what we've just discussed. And if I were to give you a pop quiz now, you would say that there are 5 whole child tenets that form the foundation for a more balanced education for the whole child. Each tenet has 10 indicators. The tenets and the indicators cannot work in isolation. They must be addressed in a systematic order according to the hierarchy of students' needs. For example, if a child's not healthy and safe, he or she cannot engage in a high level of learning. And a high level of learning is what's required today for success in our schools and in life. We ask that you thoughtfully answer this question about your student's success. Is each student in your school healthy, safe, engaged, supported, in addition to being challenged?
Don't you want a whole education, not just core academics, for your children your grandchildren, and all children?
We must stand together to be heard and make it happen. And once we make whole child education happen, then we have to devote ourselves to sustaining it. Anything that's good for our kids must be sustainable. Once the 5 tenets work together, they must be sustainable by becoming part of that, what we call SOP, Standard Operating Procedures in our schools. And if you think about it, sustainability, and we want you to understand this, sustainability is not one of the 5 tenets, but it's the necessity. It's discussed separately on page 18 in the Whole Child Guide. And on that page, ASCD reminds us, Ganera, that schools implementing a whole child approach must practice the skills we've mentioned already: collaboration, coordination, and integration to ensure the approach's long-term success. In fact, one of the most critical indicators for sustainability is listed on page 18, and it's indicator number 9, and I'll read it for you. Our school staff, community-based service providers, families, and other adult stakeholders, we're thinking people like in the medical community, the business community, community leaders, all of these people, all of these groups must share research, appropriate data, idea generation, that's that creative thinking,
That's right.
and resources to provide a coordinated whole child approach for each child. It really does take a whole village to educate a whole child, doesn't it? Doesn't it, Ganera?
Absolutely.
Now, we're not out of buddy-duddy. We're not out of the line. We realize this will not happen overnight.
That's right.
But if we don't have a shared vision of what is best for our own children, then our vision cannot become reality for all children. As we come to the conclusion of our webinar, we know that we've shared a great deal of information in a short amount of time. So you probably are asking yourself, well, where on earth do I begin this process in addition to everything else I'm doing? Well, we do recommend that you read page 19 in the Texas Whole Child Guide and see what ASCD recommends, quote, at a minimum, that you must implement specifically for each tenet. We support these minimums. However, we know we must go beyond the minimum to give our children the education they deserve and the education they require to thrive. Our children deserve more than the minimum.
That is so right. And the challenge for each of us is to devise a deliberate action plan for our school, district, and community in order to sustain our effort in implementing all 5 tenets with all 10 indicators for each student. You may be asking yourself, what else can I do? Well, if you will, you can support the whole child education in Texas. There's absolutely power in numbers. We need you. Let's stand up and be counted. Go to the Texas ASCD website, which is listed at the bottom of this page. If you represent an organization or business, please go to the Texas ASCD website and click on the bottom of the page to proudly become a whole child endorser and supporter for whole child education for the children of Texas. Please note there is absolutely no cost to becoming a supporter of this initiative. Simply complete the endorser page, then fax or scan, then email the signed form to Texas ASCD. Glenda and I want to thank you so much for your valuable time and your support. If you have any further questions or comments regarding the Texas Whole Child Initiative, we beg you to please contact Texas ASCD by phone or email as listed on this last slide.
And pardon us as we go through to this last slide, a little technical difficulties here.
It happens to me all the time, Glenda.
And we're waiting to see if there are any questions as we go through. We're seeing if we can make you dizzy here as we spin through. And we'll leave this last page open with the phone number for Texas ASCD, the email address, and how to download the Whole Child Guide. Now, it looks like we may have some questions, but I can't. Okay.
There we go.
All right. Let's see here.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, we got to move them up a little bit, I think.
Okay. Bear with us here. Someone has asked, whoops, my computer is evidently running slowly. So let's see if we can look at this. What do you want us to do with this information? Well, we want you first to become a vocal supporter of whole child education. You can share it, and we know that we need a little bit more work on it, but we believe fully in it, because if we don't advocate for policy and practice, then the vision of whole child education in Texas cannot become a reality.
And I would say also, if you're spreading the word, you will get supporters. And again, remember that you're not doing it by yourself. It is not one teacher, one administrator. It's all joining together. It's the school, it's the district, it's the community, all working together to do what is best for children. It's called whole child education.
And again, we need to advocate. If you don't know about whole child education and you don't know about the tenets and the indicators,
right,
then how can you be an advocate for all children? Because we really do know that our kids are pushed to the limit, but challenged academically, but there's so many other things that we are missing that need to be addressed through the whole child education.
And each time that you are doing this, also, Glenda, and I think the people will see, your culture will actually get closer, warmer, and all members of the culture will be more productive in the line to work and make things happen for children.
Okay. That's the only question that I see. And if there's another one, Paul, I can't see it from here. You might call us. Oh, okay, here it is. Who is this webinar designed for? Educators, citizens. We designed it for everyone, whether you're an educator, a family member, a public policy maker. So this was a very brief overview of the session for anyone who is interested and wants to learn more about whole child education. So you can print the guide, and that will give you something in print to talk to people about and refer to. And then we will look at what we can do to follow up to support you in our drive and in this initiative to bring whole child education to the state of Texas.
And I would say with the guide, and if you had a taping of this webinar, it can be used with your parents, with your businesses. You can make presentations. You know, it'll give you that information so that it will enable you to go in and present and be a supporter, an advocate for children through whole child education.
All right. Well, what Ganera and I would like to do again is to thank you. And we had a couple of glitches, we know, and it's our first webinar together, and we hope that you have learned something new. Thanks again for spending your time with us today.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.